Before getting to this rant, I just wanted to address a couple of things. First of all, I know that I'm quite late on the Call of Duty projects I had planned and another Call of Duty loot box opening. I apologize. Things have been rather busy, and I'll be honest, I'm not exactly the greatest editor. Plus, there were other technical issues that are preventing me from getting it out there, but I assure you it will come out soon, in quotes. Just like Battle.net whenever they work on something. This is more or less a redux, whatever the hell you want to call it, talking about Call of Duty World War II, and of course the topic about Call of Duty always needing always online. I highly recommend watching that video for context, and of course to help me in the algorithm, and then come back to this one, because this one is not only relevant, but is also a reoccurring issue. With that out of the way, let's reignite Call of Duty once again. First of all, I want to say that I'm not really the biggest fan of Call of Duty. I never really liked Call of Duty. I always considered it pretty fucking overrated. And when Modern Warfare 2, the fucking old one, was a thing, I always preferred the original Borderlands, as Borderlands, despite being a mixture of Diablo-based looting and first-person shooting gameplay, which apparently turned 15 years old the other day, which, holy shit. Even liking Borderlands more than Modern Warfare 2, the fucking old one, is more to do with the fact that I can enjoy Borderlands as much as I want on a solo level, even though co-op does make it better, but it's not entirely necessary. Whereas Modern Warfare 2, the only enjoyment you're going to get out of it, and pretty much what you're expected to get the most out of it, is to play against randoms. And even with the servers being fixed, quote-unquote, doesn't change the fact the only other modes of play is the campaign, which nobody plays, and the Spec Ops, which is the dollar store version of Time Splitters' challenge mode, and that's pretty fucking depressing. They're not even worth doing, and aside from maybe a couple of gamer score achievements and maybe boosting the number of stars you get, which there's a total of 69, that's really fucking funny. And of course, trying to get the best time, which is about as relevant as playing Crash Bandicoot for the relics, is pretty fucking subpar, honestly. I don't care that one plays like a Diablo shooter, and I don't care that one plays like a realistic military shooter. If a game has replay value, I'm gonna favor the one that has replay value, and especially if it's fucking good. Borderlands might be subjective, but I know one thing. You can play Borderlands till the end of time. And with Call of Duty, that is actually dependent on the title and on the platform of choice. You see, I was always on the verge, or belief, that Call of Duty World War II was really the last true game to feature an authentic offline experience, because ever since then, Black Ops 4 was the one that really started to do all this nonsense, and then Modern Warfare 2019, especially with making Activision accounts mandatory to play the fucking game. Well, guess I was wrong, because on the XCOM, there is a account who goes by the name of @OfflineBots. Fairly amusing name, but they have information that could be of interest. And there's even a website if you want to check it out. It's a bit bare bones at the moment, but it gets the job done. They've actually explained something to me that actually made me want to do this, and that World War II on PC is actually quite different compared to the console version, but whatever platform you're playing modern Call of Duty on doesn't change the fact that having to have internet requirements for all modes of the game is really fucking shitty. And I'm so tired of this type of comment that people will throw around and make excuses for the company trying to defend the multi-billion-dollar company as if they've done nothing wrong and just want to release their games to their good old boys and girls while they get the profit off of people who want to buy skins from something they recognize and clap because they recognize it. It's fucking stupid. And I also don't care if they bring back shit that was in 2009 or 2010 or 2011 or whatever the fuck. Weren't you the same people that got pissed off at Activision for shutting down the MW2R mod, which basically restores the multiplayer capability of Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered, which should have been included to begin with, but I'm pretty sure Activision didn't allow Infinity Ward to do that, since it would interfere with sales with the new Call of Duty game at the time, which instead had Rust as one of the maps or whatever. I'm pretty sure that was a pretty big deal, especially since people really like Modern Warfare 2. I'm not particularly the biggest fan of it, but there are some things I do like about it, and the split screen play is fairly decent, as it was back when Call of Duty was all about this ADHD movement shit that people seem to love. But if any other company that does it that isn't labeled Call of fucking Duty, they will ignore it more so than me possibly playing Elden Ring, and that's pretty fucking sad. And I'm going to give the same advice that I've been told over and over again. Maybe actually play it instead of dismissing it because of some pre-notion that it may not be your cup of tea, which is just really shitty advice on all fronts. But seriously, there's a reason why people refer to Titanfall 2, or hell, even Quake 1 and 2, for people who really like that hyper-movement shooter crap. But if it doesn't have Call of Duty on the title, then it's shit to you, and that's just really fucking immature. Also, especially since I've actually recently beaten Ratchet Deadlocked, a game that, despite coming out on the PS2, especially if you're playing in the highest difficulty, demands you move around constantly doing backflips, front flips, sideways flips, whatever the flip, what the flip. You could do all kinds of movement in that shit, and even though there's no quick scoping in that game, you can still get a lot of movement for a grounded shooter, and still has some elements, quote unquote, from the game that you detest, even though the same game has the whatever the fuck that was implemented in the new Call of Duty. All these Call of Duty games are basically running on life support. Why should I spend money on a game that's going to shut down at some point? Even something like Battleborn, a game that could be interesting, unfortunately relied on it being a live service game, and it ended up biting it in the ass, with Concord unironically beating that record by a week or some shit. And that was a game that was developed for a very, very long time. Putting all the pronoun shit and character design aside, if the game, despite being developed for 8 fucking years, actually had an offline mode that maybe made you want to care about these characters, and a multiplayer mode on the side that could make people care, maybe the game could have lived a little longer. Maybe 3 weeks at best. I don't know why people always wants me to play Warzone. I don't care that it's free to play. I do not like Battle Royale, period. I do not like elimination, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Flies bullshit in games like this. Hell, I don't even like hardcore modes in games I do like playing. Whether it be Halo, or whatever game basically restricts your ability to live long enough to enjoy your game, I guess. I don't like SWAT in Halo. I find it very boring, and the fact that it's basically made for sweats and tryhards, as they call it, I don't find that shit fun. There's a lot of things that make Halo fun, but I don't like being limited to people who think that the only way to enjoy the game is essentially cripple yourself. It's kind of like why Smash Brothers is more enjoyed when you have creative rule sets than strict ones. But tell that to the actual pedophiles and other people who linger around a game that's made for kids, but then will also argue that the game can only be released on those systems because it's Nintendo, even though they like to say that it's a celebration of video games. Also, you do realize that a lot of elements from Warzone has been taken from other games, hell, even stolen from. Weapon rarity, haven't seen that before. Armor plating, haven't seen that before. Let's see, what other shit is in there? Team-based gameplay, haven't seen that before. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too broad of an example, but still. I mentioned in my older rant that the only game mode that I've actually enjoyed is game modes like in Time Stories you have limited lives. What about games like Burnout Revenge or other games where you go around the track or whatever, and the person or car that's in last place gets eliminated? That to me is exciting, as you're still playing the game, but you actually have to keep up with the thrill of battle, or else you're not going to live long. Or even game modes like Blur's Battle Mode, or even Mario Kart, depending on which one you actually like. I personally prefer Blur, but that's another story. You're still doing battle, but it's not this hyper-fixated game mode of being the first to win, or surviving the longest, when some games can even last shorter than you can blink, or some games just get outed by some random nonsense. It's just not enjoyable. Thankfully, there are a variety of other shooters that may be slower paced or fast paced. And it's nothing to do with Warzone or any Battle Royale being fast paced. I just don't enjoy the type of elimination game mode. That's why there's so many different flavors of shooters or even games that people can enjoy. I don't understand why every time I have to be confronted about this, I have to explain myself when I've already done it several times. I've explained why I think games like Borderlands can be fun, but did they budge? But I'm supposed to expect them budge because, well, games like Warzone and Fortnite are free, so it should be fun. Well, here's another thing. Just because games are free and you can play them, even though you don't need PS Plus, it doesn't always make it fun. Okay? A lot of free-to-play games, in my opinion, I mentioned this on a live stream, but a lot of games that are free-to-play either have really shitty microtransactions or they're gacha. And they basically require you to play the game a lot extensively just to maybe enjoy it, or the game is designed so shitty that you have to spend money to keep up. That is really, really shitty business model practices. And I don't care if it's commonplace, okay? I know some people may consider it an icon of sin, but whenever I'm out running errands, and I'm sorry if that bothers some people, God forbid I actually have a fucking life, besides when I'm not streaming a PM or whatever the fuck, but when I'm playing a game on my phone, 10 times out of 10, I'm playing an emulated game. Because a lot of these mobile games are designed to be intrusive and take your money, and I'm not for that. I don't know about some people, but that's not fun for me. Having to be basically bound by a game that's so shittily designed that I can't just simply play the game without fear of nonsense. I'm tired of explaining this, and I'm going to say this one last time. I don't like playing Battle Royale games. Don't ask me to play them. If you can't budge in the games that I buy specifically to play, don't bother me about Warzone. It's also funny because the main selling point of modern COD is to bring back shit that was in Modern Warfare 2 and even 3 or whatever old game. You could still play those old games today. Maybe through other means, sure, like with plutonium and shit. Whether you're playing the older Call of Duty games on mouse and keyboard or controller should not matter if you actually truly enjoy the game. Most people who probably played Call of Duty have played it on a controller, and the fact that they find it annoying now is just kind of sad. When it's still those versions that you grew up with, but discarded like Andy's toys from Toy Story because you find the one version superior, with the only thing that those old versions having better is the split screen being more viable compared to finding a way to get it to work on the so-called PC master race. But I'm going to digress on that too because it's not worth it to try and argue schematics over it. You want to enjoy the game, fine. If you prefer using mouse and keyboard, fine. If you want to use a controller, fine. Just enjoy the game, but most importantly, make sure the game that you're in favor of can actually be playable even after the game's life cycle actually ends, okay? People probably don't even play Call of Duty 2 or 3 anymore, or even the original. But even if you wanted to, per se, you could still play those games. Because they don't have this always online bullshit. And chances are there's probably mods for those, or if they're even built in, which I'm not 100% certain, you can play them against bots. And that's kind of what Battlefield used to offer until they made it a requirement to play with other people. As much as I love Battlefield Bad Company, that 1 or 2 player mode is just fucking sad. Playing Call of Duty and spending money, good hard-earned money, however you see fit, as long as it's not from some illegal drugs or some shit, or anything of the sort that breaks the law, and spending your storage space should not be the admission that you should have to pay for if you can't even play the game on your own merits. Okay, Diablo 3 had a similar fate where people got mad at Blizzard back when they were actually a reputable company because they made the game always online. Guess what they did? They allowed you to play the console versions offline. Not as super detail specific compared to what offline bots talk about, but you could still theoretically play those games offline without needing to worry about being constantly connected and enjoy the game, albeit at a lesser experience because they neutered the inventory system and they made you play the controller. The fucking horror. The fucking nightmare before Christmas. Oh no. Look, I know people don't even like Diablo 3 just because of its cartoony, odd graphics, but I'd rather play a game that I know I can play for as long as I live and provided the license doesn't expire, which that's what PC games let you bypass, by the way, than having to deal with a game license that can expire because the online servers don't fucking work.